Hello, everyone. My name's Dr. Adam Fraser, and I'm joined by 𝗟𝗓𝗡𝗨, who is the HR manager at Medtronic.
Well, thanks for inviting me to this session, Adam.
That obviously we're talking about here, that we did the Evolution project together with your organization. And that program focuses on improving well-being, performance, and culture. Kind of what was the driver behind you wanting to engage with that? Like, as an organization, why did you want to invest in that side of your people?
Yeah, like we have an internal organizational health survey. We do that twice a year, and we had gone through some significant transformation over the 2 years prior to engaging with yourself, Adam, and we were really listening to our employees, and there was our the stress levels. Are they reasonable at work? It's a very sort of open-ended statement, but they were low and they weren't improving with all of the other great programs that we had in place. So we really wanted to understand, what did this mean? You know, what did this really mean to our employees within Australia? And we had the privilege of having you at one of our conferences when we talked about the third space. Yeah. And I think that gave us an insight in terms of how we really needed to think differently and more broadly to help our employees, not just within work, but also outside of work as well.
Yeah, and the modules we chose to run in the Evolution project was very much addressing those areas where there was a little bit of gap or area of improvement. But if you think about that program and what we created, it's kind of an unusual model because it's a virtual school, but leaders take their teams through it. So a lot of online virtual programs, individuals do it on their own. But what we get the team to do is come together, they do the program with their leader, they play the videos, it has diagnostics, action plans, discussion points. Like, why did you go with that model?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, you know, across Medtronic, we have about 180 individuals that have the responsibility to lead teams and manage people. And we're really trying to enable a leader-led culture, because we see the power and the opportunity if we equip and support and develop 180 people, the power that that group of individuals will have over your executive leadership team to drive that high performance, to drive trust within the organization and connection. Yeah. So we really saw this as an opportunity to develop our people leaders through the management module, but then also they have a stronger connection. They know their teams better than the executive teams or the one-over managers. And in most situations, we're not naive. There's not every relationship within teams is great, but in the majority, the team trusts their manager. So when we looked at the topics of the module, we felt that there would be more open conversation because that trust was already there, and an honest, authentic connection through the group discussions that could open the door to deeper conversations one-on-one or as a team outside the modules, to really get people to think how they're working today, but where they need to get to in the future to really improve individual and team performance and the culture that we have.
Yeah, it's really interesting because obviously, and currently even more so, that well-being, mental health, performance are conversations we're having much more, and there's more pressure on leaders to have those conversations and to support their team. So not only are they about getting the team's results, but also support their well-being, you know, develop stuff around mental health. When we did some research recently, and leaders said, I want to have these conversations, but I'm petrified of them. And we talk about psychological safety, and that's a hot topic right now. And we all go, we've got to make our teams feel safe. But one thing we got from leaders is they said, I don't really feel safe to have those conversations. What if I say something wrong? What if I don't know how to start it? And that's one of the reasons why we came up with this alliance method of the leaders having these conversations, but in a very structured and safe environment where, you know, I'm running I'm on the videos, you know, giving instruction, talking about this, giving content, and then the leaders really just facilitating the conversation. What was some of the feedback from leaders about, that capacity to have those deeper conversations? Because a lot of them said, I've been wanting to talk to my team about this for years, but I just never felt there was an opportunity to do it. But this program gave me that opportunity. What was some of the feedback from leaders?
The feedback from the leaders was so positive. I think the simplicity of the tools that we were given, the facilitators guides, it didn't overcomplicate the subject matter. It was really simple, and it was just pointers, wasn't it? Like once the conversation started, the feedback that we got was the sessions went on for far longer than the recommended timeline.
They talk so much,
because the conversation really started to come out. The other thing was that we got feedback from the leaders and the individuals that participated, is that we were actually dedicating time to talk about people rather than having a team meeting and just doing the usual, how is everyone? Great, now let's look at what our quarterly sales are, how are we tracking, how's supply. That this was purely dedicated to the individuals in the team and how they were feeling. And when we engaged, and we obviously couldn't foresee COVID coming, but we started the planning, and then we kicked off, I think, our first session of February 2020. And
great timing.
It was perfect. We must have known, Adam, because the subject matter, it was perfect timing for us. With COVID as well, it just alleviated some of the stresses that people were feeling going through 2020 as well. But it was just really simple. It got straight to the issue. And even if people didn't want to speak in the forum, there was always someone within the team that spoke up, and it just generated good conversations. So no one came back to us saying they felt uncomfortable at any point with the way that the sessions were run. It was a really positive feedback from individuals and managers overall. It was great.
Obviously, a lot of online programs, we just get the individual to do. How do you think the model that the Evolution Project uses around getting the team together, getting the leader to run them through it, how much more powerful do you think that is than these virtual standalone programs that individuals can engage in at their own leisure?
Personally, I'm a very strong believer in that, if you think about building trust and leading with empathy, the modules allowed leaders to be vulnerable if they chose to be, because there was so much opportunity for leaders to share examples from their own career or personal life, and being able to authentically be vulnerable in front of your team or peers, if we did it as a leadership peer group, and that humility, it just creates this openness. I keep going back to trust, but it's so important to me. And there's nothing like, oh, I'm just so relieved to feel that maybe, someone that you admire as a leader or you aspire to be has bad days like me, or even worse days than me, and actually doesn't always cope. And it was things like that just went, okay, I'm normal. I can get through this.
Let's not get carried away here.
Day-to-day job.
Look, a couple of last questions I want to ask you is, one of them, well, many of the groups talked about, they said when we did our action plans and we shared it, whether that was about our well-being, whether that was about our performance or the culture we wanted to create in the team, because we shared with each other what we're focusing on, they said the team held us accountable for that. Like if someone was talking about, well, I want to leave at this time to get home to see the kids, or I want to go to the gym, that people were aware of that and encouraging them. And they said, because we're going through this thing together as a group and we're all trying to achieve a goal and we support each other, they said the connection that really brought was quite profound. Was there anything about, like, did you observe connection? Like we talked about increased trust in leader, but what about cohesiveness in the group?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and it was a really challenging time because you were connecting deeply with people without being physically connected with them. We did all of our modules. We were all working from home. Our offices were closed for the timing of the module rollouts. So people really were making an effort to follow through on things that were discussed outside of those settings. And what we've seen is actually, now that we've come back to the offices, and we're, you know, one of our main priorities is, as a leadership team this year, is really to continue to drive that connection piece, but more in the physical connection. People are craving, I think, that now to, you know, have the kitchen conversations, lift conversations, and just connect. So I can say for my team, we actually revisited the psychological safety module just a couple of months ago. So that's nearly a year since we did it originally, just to check in again. And I think we still reference, and I hear, you know, the evolution project being referenced just randomly in conversations with other people. So it was so impactful for it still to be dropped into conversation, or for teams to go back. Let's go back and relook at the work we did. Where are we? Have we progressed? Or are we falling backwards in certain areas that we need to bring our attention to? Because it's easy, isn't it? It's hard to change habits and stick to them. So you always have to go back and just do a check-in, which I've certainly done with my team, and I am aware of other teams doing that as well. So
yeah. And I suppose that's the beauty of the virtual school, is not only, like, we introduced the program before COVID, and it was COVID proof because you could do it virtually, or you could all be in the room together. But it's great to hear that that's living on and staying front of mind, but also it gives people an opportunity to go, hey, let's just check in and take our temperature on how we're doing in that area.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And most importantly, I appreciate that the program was well received and that it had an impact. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks very much.